This is Uncle Ruckus. No relation. I'm a very spiritual person. I start out each day thanking the man for the sunrise, for the land I walk on, for the air I breathe, and for this show, the era of Reconstruction.
I'm putting it all together, ladies and gentlemen.
What is this music?
This is kind of like an intro. We're getting into it on a Monday.
This sounds like some liberal fairy tale, hugging tree bull crap.
Hey, listen, we're taking liberal music and we're flip-flopping it. We're going to utilize it.
All things work together for the good of them that love the Lord and are called according.
Hallelujah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the era of Reconstruction. Bring that bass. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We are just having a little bit of fun here. That's all we're doing. You are in tune to the Era of Reconstruction podcast, a New Journey Pack production for this Monday. It's the 12th. It's the 13th or the 12th. It's the 12th, 2020. Listen, things are moving very fast here at New Journey Pack. And
that's a good idea. We should start telling people like what we're actually doing.
Yeah, why don't you do that, Audrey?
We are.
Whoa. Audrey is our amazing CEO. This guy is dope. He comes in here with $1,000 suits on.
Oh my
with
God.
Presidential ties. That tie is amazing.
I know. I was inspired when I saw this tie and I was like, ooh, this looks like something Donald would wear. Exactly. I need to wear it.
Yes.
Right, there you go. And then we have the wonderful, lovely, and majestic AJ Swinson.
Happy to be here, folks.
I like that. I like that a lot.
We got to keep it. That's just
I
great.
know.
That's awesome. All right, go ahead, Audrey.
So we are, pretty soon we're going to start door knocking, door to door for Laura Loomer. We are running commercials right now for Carla Spalding. Actually, that's going to start at the end of this week. We are running anti-Joe Biden commercials. I encourage you to go to our website, www.newjourneypack.org, newjourneypack.org. I guess I don't have to say the www anymore, but go to newjourneypack.org and look at our work, and you'll see plenty of stuff. We're running Eat in Peace, which went viral. So that has been a great, it's our first commercial that
Check it out on YouTube, guys.
Gone viral. Yeah, that's right. Check it out on YouTube. So coming in, the election's getting tighter, and we're doing a lot of things on the ground, like I said, for Laura Loomer. Going to be on the ground for Carla, running commercials for Carla, going to run commercials for Laura Loomer. Let me share something with you, by the way. Laura Loomer, as well as someone in the Arizona First, I forgot her name, the National Republican Congressional Committee. So just to break this down for you real quick, there's the RNC, which is the Republican National Committee. And then there's one for Congress. One for the House of Representatives, and then there's one for the Senate, right? So there's the National Republican Senatorial Committee and our SC, National Republican Congressional Committee. These are basically campaign committees that pump in cash to races. I found out today that the National Republican Congressional Committee is only putting money into incumbents. It doesn't matter how close a challenger is to actually beating somebody or polling, they are not putting in outside support. So we have a lady right now in the Arizona First, I believe, I cannot think of her name, in the Arizona First, who is tied in the polls. Doesn't matter which polls, the liberal polls, conservative polls, independent polls. She is tied in all the polls for the seat to knock out a Democratic incumbent. And the National Republican Congressional Committee, NRCC, will not put money in her race. So we received a call today from another super PAC asking us to step in. Our funds are pretty much fully committed.
Is that Tiffany Shedd?
I didn't think
Arizona, number one.
Yeah, it is Republican Challenge. Is it Tiffany?
Yeah, Tiffany.
This is, and I received that call today from a super PAC, and then when he told me, I said, "What do you mean she's not getting help? She's neck and neck." This is astonishing. I get it. Laura Loomer, the National Republican Committee they're not gonna support Laura. She's controversial. She's too much like Trump. They're not gonna support it. So we understand that's unfortunate because they should be, but we understand it. But this thing in Arizona, where you have someone neck and neck who's a lawyer, who's a water rights attorney, and I found out this is the major issue in the 1st District. That district is compromised. A large portion of it is Navajo reservation, Indian reservations. That's one of there's like 3 in the country, but that's one of them where they do not have running water on their reservation.
Wow.
They have been unable for decades, for 60, 70 years in America to get running water. The lady who's the Republican challenger to the Democrat is a water rights attorney. She specializes, talk about niche. She specializes in water rights.
Wow.
And she is running, telling them, listen, elect me. I've been doing this for 30 years. I know exactly what the problem is, how to tackle it between the federal, state, and local government so we can get this Indian reservation running water. This is remarkable, and the National Republican Congressional Committee won't help her out. This is why New Journey PAC exists.
Absolutely.
Because the Republican establishment is, I don't care Trump got elected. I don't care how much time Mitch McConnell, everybody's, oh, we love Trump. They are not doing their jobs. They are not out there putting your money and foot forward. People, I just got asked, oh, look at your website. It looks like you got a large staff and you got office. This is why. The reason why we have such a large staff and a growing staff is because the Republican National Committee doesn't do what they need to do. Let me give you a great example. One of the reasons why Darren's position exists. He's director of endorsements and policy. Also, that involves candidates. What we realized is that if you decide you want to run for office, like Dr. Trey Penny out in Texas, right?
Yeah, 30.
PhD, education guy, smart guy, but doesn't know about the mechanisms of politics. There's no place to go. There's no place for him to go. And so now we're stuck with trying to get people to win and before the candidates declare, because once they declare, we can't really work with them, educating these candidates as much as possible. That's the problem we have. This is absolutely astonishing to me, Darren, that this is where we sit. This is why New Journey exists, because the Republican establishment, despite Trump's election, still refuses to step out and help Republican candidates in the field.
And it says that her husband and her children are Native American.
They are Native Americans.
And she has on her website Native American issues.
She is tied neck and neck, and she's tied with the polls. The last poll I saw, she was 1 point ahead of the challenger. This is a seat we can flip, and the National Republican Congressional Committee has given her $0. So we get a call from a super PAC that's already spent $100,000 on her. We got a call from a super PAC today saying, hey, Autry, can you please figure out something? I know she's not a black candidate, but she's got a lot of black people in her district. Can you help her out somehow? And I can't, because we don't have the funds.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other point I wanted to make, is that we're not just supporting black candidates. We are supporting candidates, one, that are looking to expand conservative values, but also that are in black areas. There we have a number of white candidates that we support that
Jim Pruden.
Right, that are in black areas. And so even Native Americans, I mean, it behooves us to really consider these people that seem to be nobodies, or the major Republican parties, they're not looking at them. But these people are out there, and they are pushing the issue of conservative values, and we need to stand behind them. And that's what New Journey PAC does, just like what Audrey said.
Yeah, this is why I want to say this. Your support is so important.
It's crucial.
This is important. We have, and you can look them up, FEC. It's public knowledge. We pay for talent here. We have a lot of talent like Darren who aren't even up to what their pay rate should be yet. They're holding out for us increasing our donations, but we have a lot of talent here. And changing the game in politics costs real dollars, because you're competing in the marketplace against Silicon Valley, against corporate America,
right,
etc. And to come to a political organization, especially now, is really high risk. Because once you're on that website and once your name is out there, there are certain companies that will not hire you. So it takes extra special care and attention to recruit and get people on board. And this is why your donation's important. And I want to tell you this. Don't give to the RNC. Don't give to the Republican Congressional Committee or the Senate version of the same. Give to the independent political PACs. Give to the, such as newjourneypac.org. There's a donate button. Give to us. And there are other great PACs out there too. Give to the PACs and give to the candidates directly. Right. Do not give to the party because they are not there for you. In fact, we've gotten a couple of $20,000 donations because they specifically said, we're not giving to the Congressional Committee anymore. The one we got for $50,000 yesterday, that was the guy said, I stopped giving to the RNC because they won't help. And so now we as a PAC, if this was done right, Laura would have gotten money from the Republican Congressional Committee to do the canvassing. And now what's happened is we have to do the canvassing, and we can't really coordinate with her, so we have to look at her website, do the stuff, and try to message for her the best we know how, because we can't really work with her or her campaign to do it, because that's against the law. But that's now left up to a PAC because the Republican establishment won't step up.
Even last week, they called and they're like, we're going to give to you and we're going to give to everyone that you endorse.
Yeah.
Directly.
Yeah, because the Republicans won't do it.
Right. Yeah.
So we have to fight. This is the battle right now. You got to fight against liberalism, communism, socialism, and Republicans.
Yeah. It's
bureaucracy, really. It just shows how
entrenched,
when the establishment is so entrenched in bureaucracy.
Yeah.
To get anything done, to change the way that things are done, it's like the network is so tightly clinched to the way that they do things. And it's not an old boys network. It's just like whoever has the power, whoever has those connections, everyone else is just kind of left out to dry, which doesn't put the party first. Well, it puts the people at the top first.
Yeah. And that actually leads to a very good point you're saying of bureaucracy, where you're looking at Amy Coney Barrett. This is the first day of her hearings. This hearing shouldn't be going on. We have the Senate and we have the presidency, and it should have been just do a vote. Why would you put your people out there to be tortured unnecessarily? But it's a part of bureaucracy.
Yeah,
it is.
It's bureaucracy for the sake of bureaucracy's sake.
Yep.
That is 80% of. Well, let me rephrase it. That's at least half of government and half of these political parties. Let's have it's like that old movie Office Space. Yeah. We're having meetings and TPP reports just for the sake of having reported. It serves no real purpose.
Right.
Yeah, that's very
even
true.
When I remember I watched every moment of Kavanaugh's confirmation.
I did too.
It was gut-wrenching. It was, to see people reading his high school yearbook as if it was evidence that he was raping women on boats. And even I was listening to Amy Coney Barrett this morning, and it's basically lectures.
That's all it is.
And they're questioning her on legislation like they don't understand the way that the Supreme Court works. And if the Affordable Care Act was the way it was supposed to be, was written well, made sense, it wouldn't be at risk. But because it didn't, if the right case comes up and points at all the holes in it, then the parts of it may be struck down. This
issue with the Supreme Court is this. If you look at the statistics, this is amazing. Liberal justices rarely, I think Kagan might go a little outside, or Kagan might. She might waver a little bit, but liberal justices rarely. I think maybe only 15% of the time vote outside of, quote unquote, the liberal framework.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, it's extraordinarily rare that they do that. Conservatives, by contrast, do almost 50. This includes, by the way, Scalia. Scalia sided a lot with the liberal side, particularly when it came to criminal defense and criminal justice. Yeah. Right? Clarence Thomas always doesn't vote in the quote-unquote political conservative perspective.
It's almost like our Achilles heel.
Right? It's almost, and by the way, this was, someone I was reading today or heard on the radio pointed this out. So I don't want to take credit for it. But he pointed out that there is actually now arising amongst conservative judicial philosophers the notion that since the Supreme Court is political, we need to go ahead and change our mind frame and look at the courts as political. Because the liberals approach it that way, And they've been doing it now for 30 years, and we're fighting a losing battle because they look at it as a political framework versus we still try to appoint people who hold to a particular judicial philosophy, right? And so the judicial philosophy of the liberals is we care about the ultimate outcome, not actually the written law as it's written on a piece of paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just...
So what do you think? Do you think that would, I wrestle with that. I wrestle with that if we should become political, like the left, adopt the left's philosophy to move our agenda forward, or do we continue with that, like I said, Achilles heel of being fair, just, and focus on only interpreting the law as what judges were established for?
Yeah, I am in the camp now of political. Because John Roberts put me in that camp. If John Roberts one year can vote against something, and then the next year vote for it, with what was it? 5 years? What was the case that happened with John Roberts voted against something? It wasn't Affordable Care. What was that? I forgot what it was. He voted against something, and he said, "No, this is unconstitutional." Then it came before the court 2 years again later, and he said, "Oh, it's constitutional." He votes to protect the institution. We lose. We cannot win unless we basically, this is sort of my thought on it. We start doing political with the courts, and that forces the left to come to the table and say, okay, let's return the courts to what they're supposed to be doing, right? The notion that the notion that politics is not in the courts is, we're the only stupid ones holding that. We're being stupid.
Well, I think that you would have to completely, the foundation of conservative thinking, you would have to come against that and change it to be, because liberals at this point are pretty much the Saul Alinsky, whatever we have to do it. It doesn't matter, what ethics is getting the job done. Who cares how you get it done? Yeah. Whereas we're over here saying this is about our future. This is about the Constitution. The Constitution has clearly laid out how this is supposed to operate. And although things have happened over time that have changed the framework, we need to conserve the way that this was created to be. So I think that would actually we'd have to change almost the worldview to fit today's political framework to do that.
Well, this is what I was going to point out. When you look at judges, they're the law. They interpret the law. And so the law has to have a foundation. It has to have a transcendent being. And I think when you elect conservative judges, they look at the Bible, they look at the Constitution, they look at the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, they look at the Federalist. These are the 5 foundations, I would say, that basically are transcended and that we abide by. Now you're talking about getting political. I think political has no foundation outside of one's opinion, outside of a few people's opinions. And so personally, I would continue with the Achilles heel because of the fact that when you get away from the foundations, as I listed, then you start going into people's interpretations. Well, what's your interpretation of conservatism? Or what's yours? And so people have varying views. It could be an 80-20 rule. People can be more liberal. People could start saying, okay, if you kill, and listen, I'm not opposed to it, but the point is that I think it's a slippery slope that eventually, not in the beginning, but eventually it will get as radical as liberals do if you don't have those foundations.
Well, the problem is this. I always believe you're dealing with the reality on the ground. And the issue is this. We are a 50-50 country. And right now we're in a situation where we have, it's almost like saying the old way of fighting, remember the old British way of fighting where you would stand in the line, fire, walk forward, kneel, the people behind you would kneel, behind that. And then all of a sudden you had, Genghis Khan or whoever that said, no, we're just going to start bringing them in, spreading them out. Where we're fighting the old way. And we cannot win fighting the old way. Because the old formal, traditional British way of fighting is no longer the way. We can't win that way. We're fighting with muskets, and they're using tanks. We'll never win this war.
Well, is
Never.
there a way to preserve the principle while
No.
upping the antics
No.
or changing
It's a
the
good
antics?
question. Yeah.
No, there's no way to reserve the principle. Because the principle is basically this. The principle is this. Hey, Scalia, Scalia's dead. Amy Coney Barrett, hey, Neil Gorsuch. The principle is this. We look at the Constitution and we read it for what it is. And if the original text sides with the Democratic point of view, it sides with it. But we do not make law. We do not care about the outcome. We don't make law. Now, sometimes in individual cases, we may overturn an individual case because it's just completely unfair, which is a role of a judge. Mm-hmm. But in terms of a wholesale policy, we don't make law. And the problem is that there's no way to do it. There's no way to do it until you start having, basically, this is how I look at it. Democrats know, even when you get a quote-unquote conservative justice, Democrats know, well, we're still going to win probably about 60-70% of the cases.
True.
Because the conservative justice will vote for our side if they believe it's right.
Kavanaugh, prime example, I think, in his first one or two rulings. They were on the liberal side.
I have spoken to some people who have argued for the Supreme Court, and they talk to me about Supreme Court prep. Mm-hmm. And they tell me, basically, a lot of times, even when they're going before liberal justices, they know they're tailoring their presentation. Listen to the oral arguments. They tailor their presentations to some conservative justices, because if they can get the conservative justice to adopt the original intent philosophy and see it from their perspective, they'll get them to swing.
Right.
And it's happened. It happened with Kennedy. It happened with David Souter. It happened sometimes with Scalia, particularly with criminal justice reform. It's happened with Clarence Thomas a few times. I mean, it happens.
Well, like you said, it has a lot to do with the case that's presented. How was the case presented? Which way was it better?
And
So on that, it's also judges are doing it based on what's been presented to them, not necessarily the way we think. Oh, well, this is the issue. They should have gone this way.
Yeah,
it's not that simple.
And I think I really believe that we have to. I don't see how we win the battle. We have a left-wing judiciary that believes it is their job to correct bad policy passed in the political branches and signed by the executive branch. Think about that. They believe if the policy is bad, yes, justice means we change the policy. We change the policy to make it right. So in the healthcare debate, that was a great example of it.
True.
There is no way. I don't care how smart John Roberts is. I've read him. He actually is a great writer. I don't care how smart he is, how smart Ruth Bader Ginsburg is, to go back to the founding time of the framers and then to say within our Constitution is the right to forcibly tax citizens and take that money to pay for you to go to a hospital.
Right.
There is no way whatsoever that was even in the mind of the framers.
No.
Right.
It just wasn't. And the facts are they passed that because look at the Obergefell decision when it comes to homosexual marriage.
Right.
Read what Kennedy wrote. It's so amazing because
even recently with the transgender
and
adding that to civil rights.
What is that? That wasn't was transgender in the mind of the 1964 Civil Rights Bill?
Of course it was.
Of Congress?
Of course it was.
Come on, man.
But see, let me tell you, that's the feeling of when we get rights from mankind. Our rights are from God. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. It didn't say we hold these truths to be self-evident that we're endowed by other men with certain inalienable rights. And if man can give you rights, then of course man can take the rights away from you.
Well, now everything. Healthcare is
so
a right.
the point
Housing
meaning
is a
is
right.
that
A
civil,
job is a right.
Listen, I go back to this notion.
You're right.
I go back to this notion. I think you're probably going to jump on me. I think civil rights was the worst thing to ever come down the pike. It was. And so because it opens the door up to any and everybody who has a complaint.
I'm not going to jump. I do jump on you, but I'm not going to jump on you because I definitely see, I'm busy and I'm not academic, but there's an intellectual framework to argue this properly. I do see that civil rights expanded. First of all, number one, I'm gonna say this. I'm ticked off at the the black proletariat. I'm ticked off at the black bourgeoisie,
right?
Because they allowed liberal whites to come in and co-op, just like Bill Burr just did on Saturday Night Live, and he talked about how white women took their Gucci boots and put them over the fence of oppression. The black bourgeoisie did the deal with this devil, did the deal with this white devil.
Well, that's what Du Bois did. Remember when he had the
intersectionality and all that.
Yeah.
Now, black rights are related to everybody else's rights, and if black people aren't truly free, if everybody else is free, and that's a prevailing intersectionality argument right now.
Yeah.
That freedom for us isn't enough. We have to fight for everybody else's freedom. And at the end of the day, a lot of times you see these other groups getting more than what we're getting.
And that brings us to the point of how
our
Obama
original issue.
moved the homosexual community as well as the illegal immigrants way far in advance than he did with blacks.
Well, follow the money.
Black folks, you are still broke. Busted and disgusted.
Follow the money. All these agendas.
You don't have any money.
Coming from?
You don't have any power.
Yep.
Think about this. The congressional black Caucasians. It's called I think Rush calls it that. The Congressional Black Caucus, right? They could, did I bring this up before?
Yeah, you did.
We talk off the air, so sometimes I get the conversation confused. But they had the power. That group of 45 folks can control the directory of Congress.
Yep.
Right.
And do they use it? No.
Yet AOC is about to throw Hakeem Jeffries out of his position.
This is amazing to me.
Right.
Sheila Jackson Lee and her cronies could literally tell AOC, you better sit your Latina butt down and you better not say nothing.
And look at what Jim Clyburn was able to do for Biden.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Clyburn is why
He should
Biden
be
is
calling the
nomination.
shots at the
Clyburn
DNC
should be
right now.
speaker. He
Right.
should be speaker of the House.
Right.
But black folks, you would settle for a couple of dimes, a nice picture with Joe Biden. That's what you sell it for.
Yeah.
You want to talk about real sellouts? It's the black Democrats. They're the real sellouts.
Yep. Hello.
They're still there talking. Think about it. They still go, civil rights stuff. So Reagan died in the 80s. Martin Luther King died. You need to get over that bullshit. I'm sorry.
Explicit.
Anyway.
Explicit.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You gotta get over it. You gotta get over it and get with now. You are still broke because you're trying to resurrect civil rights from the 1960s.
Yeah.
That's why you're broke now.
Yep. You're so focused.
We
in on the
celebrate
past.
Julius Caesar as a historical figure in his time. We don't drag that crap up to now.
Yeah.
And we may read about the wisdom of John Locke, read about the wisdom of the Federalist Papers. We're not dragging that stuff up to now.
And to be honest with you, if it wasn't for Christopher Columbus, blacks would still be in Africa being enslaved by the Ottoman Empire. Okay. So happy Christopher Columbus Day. Okay. The indigenous people would have never brought us over here. So,
but I think what we miss on this too is that we should be patting ourselves. Well, I guess I didn't do the work today, but civil rights was I guess your generation, I guess, did. But it's like we should be celebrating the fact that we won the war in a way, the ideological war for civil rights. We should be celebrating, and today we should be basking in that and accelerating and excelling because we fought for rights and we got them. And now we can go anywhere and do anything that we want. And all the racist white people, we can put them on Instagram and make them look like fools and get them fired. I mean, like we should be beyond where we're living under this. Oh, we're still oppressed. We're still this. It's like we should be so happy that we won.
And if you're sitting around now talking about, oh, you're oppressed and white people this and white people, you're intellectually lazy and you're probably physically lazy. I'm just saying that. There's some exceptions. Actually, let me change that because LeBron James is not physically lazy, but he is intellectually dumb.
he is.
He is intellectually stupid to be running around and talking about victimology.
No excuse.
Like I said, 99.9% of the women on the planet will sleep with this guy. That's number one. If you measure it by sex, if you want to measure it by money, he's worth over $1 billion. So that's 2. If you measure it by power and strength and physicality and alpha male, that's 3. He meets like all 3-4 criterias. The same Donald Trump met, for God's sakes.
Did he go to college?
Yeah, I think. Oh, no. He was drafted out of high school. He was one of the last.
That was my point.
And he didn't even go to college. And you're trying to run around talking about, you're still victims. You're still victims. Let's run through Lil Wayne, Jay-Z, Nelly, Mace, Babyface. You can go old school, new school. You can go Drake. Look at all these people. Talib Kweli, whatever his name is, Run DMC, Ice Cube, Ice-T, Oprah Winfrey, Morgan Freeman. Keep the list going. Will Smith. President Barack Hussein Obama, Oprah Winfrey, for God's sakes. How many black folks have to succeed before you stop lying to yourself and telling yourself that white people are the problem?
Well,
Even if you want to... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Darren.
Well, there's this mantra. I was watching Black Lightning.
I used to love that show.
Okay. Do you remember the scene where the lady said, if one of us black people are enslaved, we're all enslaved? And that's the mindset. It's like 100% of black people got to be quote unquote not enslaved in order for there to be a resolution.
That show actually
impossible.
had an interesting look at martial law, which kind of happened with coronavirus. The idea of martial law, how the government can do that and how scary it is. So it's like they were showing a relatively conservative experience of the importance of not letting the government come in and take over, but then they were liberal at the same time. It was very weird.
Yeah, well, projection.
But I want to say, too, we look at those people at the top. We look at the billionaires and millionaires, but we can also look at, in 2010, the last data that we had, 40% of black people were in the middle class. 21% of black men are in the upper middle class. This isn't just like...
And relative to the percentage we make up of the citizenry, that's high.
That's high. Yeah. I mean, you look at more black people, at least at the time, I think, were in the middle class than Hispanic people. I mean, when you look at, I think there's this idea that we're not doing well, and that's false. We are doing very well in this country.
Let me name some names. A.J. Swinson, Darren Williams, Autry Pruitt, Fred Mooney, Preston Jack. These are friends of mine that I know, and also people that work here. Look at our website. We got a new guy starting with us, Derek Hinkerson, George Farrell. This is Karen Watson out in Texas, lives in one of the richest areas in Texas, just upper middle class. So forget about the millions and billionaires.
Well, look at this. The Delaware Gazette, and actually this was last year, November the 14th, by Pastor Darrell Scott. It says, since President Trump's inauguration, the U.S. economy has created a whopping 1 million new jobs for African Americans, including many right here in Ohio. I guess he was in Ohio when he was given this writing. Today, the national black unemployment rate, this was before Corona, is at an all-time low of 5.5%. Unemployment for black women is even lower at just 4.4%. More importantly, the overall black-white employment gap is smaller than it has ever been. It is great to see so many African American men and women back in the workforce more than ever before, and that's a fact.
Right.
So you're right. You don't have to look at the big wigs, the big black names. I mean, you look at everyday citizens,
right,
who are basically, if you want to get a job, you can find a job. Now, granted, you're never going to get down to zero unemployment. There's just some derelicts who are never going to, want to get a job. But that's not the point. The point is, if there's a job out there and you want one, you can find it.
And in today's, if you wanted to start your own, think about this. If you wanted to start your own little show, and you could figure out how to get just 1,000 people to pay you $10 a month for your show,
right,
that'd be $10,000 a month. Think about, right? With your laptop,
right?
With your laptop, your ingenuity, all you need is 1,000 fans. 500 fans, and that'd be 5,000 a month, and you're automatically in the middle class. 10,000 fans, and you're automatically in the top 20% of the country.
Right.
1,000 fans. That's how much we have changed. We have black people right now. Remember, we were looking at a lady on YouTube right now. She got a very, very small niche. She does this comedy, what it was like to grow up black. Very small niche. She's got about 15,000 fans. I'm one of them. And each one of her fans, I think she charges like $2 a fan. You're like, fine, I'll give her $2 a month. Who cares? $24 a year. right? 15,000 fans. She's making $30,000 a month.
Right.
$30,000 a month from her 15,000 fans.
Yeah.
And let you know this, my daughter, she just turned 18, about a year ago, she says, Dad, I'm going to have to pay money on all this money. I'm going to have to pay taxes on all this money. I said, what are you talking about?
Right.
What money are you talking about?
Yeah.
She said, oh, I didn't tell you. I have a YouTube show. And I critique like videos of pop culture people. And I said, really? She said, yeah. I said, well, how much have you made so far? She said, well, this year, now she was 16 and a half. She said, I've made $30,000. I said, what?
Right.
She's already above the poverty level of 16.
exactly.
Buy a new journey pack. I'm about to.
Now I know why Darren got that watch from.
Yeah, right now.
Darren got this watch. He said, "Oh, it's a gift. It was a gift because I turned 50, so that was my gift." I was like, "Who gave him that gift?" Oh, his daughter did because his daughter got a YouTube channel.
Right.
But it's you're right.
That's
It's
crazy.
real, and the kid doesn't even have to leave the house. I mean, it's insane. And then she's like, you know what? She says, "Do I have to pay taxes on this?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, I need to vote."
Right.
Exactly.
How many
She said-
people right now have,
Darren,
there's
you gotta pay
literally
me
a
some rent.
platform for people who play video games and record it,
my
and they
gosh,
make
yeah,
money off of people watching them play video games.
Look at the black YouTubers doing all sorts of stuff that doesn't make
Right.
and I'm not even talking about the YouTubers that get like 10, 15 million. Like he's 30,000 in 1 year living in home 16. And that's
passive
because
income.
And
Yep.
that's because she is 16 and can't put her full mind to it because she's got school.
Right.
Imagine you put your full mind to this stuff.
You've got what's his name? I think his name is Marquise Brownlee. He's my favorite. I'm a huge fan of black nerds. I'm obsessed with them.
You hear this, black
I have a
nerds?
See,
huge
black
crush-
nerds, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, email me, autry@newjourneypack.org.
Black nerds.
I will
I'm
get you a
telling
date.
ladies,
Yeah.
drop the athletes, pick up the nerds. It's where it's at,
Pick up the
okay?
nerds.
Marquise Brownlee, he's got 12.3 million subscribers on YouTube. Every single media company goes through him before they release
What does he
things.
talk about?
Technology. He gives every phone,
good.
every computer, every camera, every car, every camera.
I'm in the
And-
wrong job.
Right. He's interviewing Mark Zuckerberg. I mean,
I quit.
he's huge.
But
See you
you know
all
what?
next
But you
time.
prove a point. It's limitless out here, and what's happening is that blacks are so wrapped up in living in history instead of living in the present and preparing
Black
for
leaders.
the future.
And you know what? I'm starting to think something. There's a little part of me that's starting to think maybe like the polls that Darren talks about, we're being bamboozled by the media.
Ooh.
Maybe, maybe like the polls that we're being bamboozled by the media. Maybe there is a breakthrough. We're just not seeing it.
Okay.
We're being told by the media black people are X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z. Maybe we're wrong about this. Maybe there is a breakthrough right now that's happening, a black class of people. And it just so happens that because the media is always focused on LeBron James and whoever the latest woke comedian is, all that, etc.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the case. Maybe there are black youth out there saying, "Yeah, I'm not. This is BS. I'm gonna let y'all talk about being woke and talk
Right.
about BLM, and I'm gonna give you some paper."
I was just telling you yesterday about one of my friends on Facebook, how he's like, the fact that all they are talking about on black media is Kamala rolling her eyes and making faces and a fly. He's like, that's all they're communicating to us about this debate. And he's like, this is intellectually insulting.
Which, by the way, it's sort of ironic too, because you would think in the place where Biden and Kamala Harris say they want to talk about healthcare,
Right.
you know, have we been going for 45 minutes?
We're just
40.
going
Yeah,
on.
I mean, come on
Oh
now.
my gosh, this show is-
Don't look at that $1 million watch of yours.
Listen, I want everybody to know right now, I got a Fossil watch. There's actually a great story about this watch. So I have a Fossil watch on, but it was a
daughter gave it to him.
replacement. It was a replacement. No. It was a replacement for my first Fossil watch that I bought. My daughter didn't give me this. So I had a job. I got a job working at Wilson's Leather. I got some stories for you. I can tell you about some nasty folks coming in Wilson's Leather that did all sorts. Leather makes folks go a little, ooh, Lord. So, and I used to pass this store called The Buckle. I must have been in, I don't know, 7th grade, 8th grade then. I passed a store called The Buckle. And I had my very first job was at Willard Library. Then I had a job at Historical Society. But then this was my first job going like retail, like job, big company. And so I got this job after school working for Wilson's. I was so proud. And I saw this watch. And it was a beautiful watch in Fossil. You know, I didn't know anything about Breitling and Rolex or anything like this. I was like, oh, this watch is the bomb, you know. Mm-hmm. And I saved up my little check and I bought that. I saved that watch for so long. I saved it up until I was about, must have been 35, 34, 35.
When did you buy the watch? How old were you?
7th grade, 8th grade.
Oh, 7th grade. Wow.
8th grade. And I saved it because that was my very first, luxury item for me, quote unquote, that I had bought myself.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The watch, it was old. It was falling apart. I couldn't keep the glass face on it. And so I bought this Fossil watch to replace that watch.
So it holds sentimental value.
It holds, but the point I'm making is I have friends that have similar stories in the era I grew up in like this, where you worked your job and you saw something that you wanted and you took your money and you purchased that. And that feeling of working and get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh, yeah, true.
Nobody gave it. Mama could have bought it for me. She didn't. Grandma could have bought it for me. And I didn't even tell them. I remember this. I didn't even tell them because I knew, they'll get it for my birthday. I was like, no, I want this watch for myself.
Absolutely.
And then I remember I came home one day. She's like, where'd you get that watch from? You stealing watches? What you doing? I said, no.
That's the first thing they thought.
I said, no. My family is crazy. I said, no. This is my watch. I bought it. She's like, well, go ahead. That's your watch then.
Right.
There's what is with that pride? I don't understand. The pride just of buying something yourself and it's yours.
Right.
That's why everybody now is trying to share everything. Oh, take my health care. We need a house. Share my land. Mm-hmm. Homeless people should live on the front of my yard. No, if you work and buy something, you don't want the homeless there. I'm sorry.
Did you see that viral video of the girl? She had just come to an interview, and the employer recorded her leaving the office, and the employer offered her the job, and she walks out to the parking lot, and she's like, it's this young black girl doing all this dancing and oh my gosh, and jumping up and down, and then stopping and walking away. And it was just like such a reminder, like we used to, and it's good to see that that's still true. See a job as a blessing.
Oh yeah,
like,
absolutely.
someone believes that I can provide value to them. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be able to buy things. I'm going to be able to do things I wasn't able to do before. It's increased freedom and also increased responsibility.
And I remember when I worked at a fast food place. Mm-hmm. It was a fast food place, but we would like have competitions amongst each other, like who got the best customers. Like you wanted to be the best. I don't care if you were serving food. It's like, I'm gonna serve this food. You gonna see. Yeah, my customer gave me an extra $2. You got 2 cents. You didn't do something right. You know, the pride in working and doing the best you can do and putting your best foot forward, which, by the way, these black athletes believe in. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made it to where they are.
Right.
So don't let them fool you.
Well, now you've got restaurants sharing tips. Like, I can't imagine me being the best waitress, knowing at the end of the night that the worst guy is going to get a portion of my tips. Yep.
You gotta share.
That's what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will bring in spades if they win. You'll be sharing everything. Now they won't be sharing their stuff. You'll have to share your own. But I mean,
have you noticed that liberals don't want to share nothing?
No, they don't want to share.
The rich liberals, they want to share. They put a wall around their house. They want to share
telling you what to do.
Right? They put a wall around their house.
Yep.
They're not participating in equal stuff.
That's what they said about the Pope. Like, so why don't you tear down that wall?
I know. Wall. Why don't you? Yeah, Pope. Why don't you take your little old crusty butt to the to the International Hospital for the Deaf and get your surgery there?
Oh my God.
No, it's not happening that way.
You know, it's just like what was it, Al Gore, or who was it that when they approached him about the planes and the fossil fuel and the carbon footprint, he said, well, you know, what I do doesn't compare to like what everyone else. Well, yeah, of course, because you're tallying everybody else up.
Wow.
I mean, come on,
and
man.
by the way, if you think this is just folly, it's not, because Mayor Lightfoot, the black lesbian Chicago mayor, decided in the middle of COVID she was going to get her hair done.
Right.
And so she went to get her hair done. And when she was cornered asked about it, she said, well, I'm the mayor. I got to look good. How about you?
Well, Nancy Pelosi, she tried to say I was framed. I can't believe they framed me.
That's the hypocrisy of
She basically puts the salon owner on blast.
They framed me. No, you framed yourself.
A victim.
I saw you in the camera. Always a victim. That is such a good point.
You're a white woman with hair to your shoulders. You couldn't do a little blowout at home.
You are the Speaker of the House. You couldn't even get somebody to come to your home.
Right.
You had to do it in your
Mayor
salon.
Lightfoot, okay, you had to get a haircut. I get it. Kinky hair is tough sometimes, but Nancy, that little hair you got, you couldn't have done that at home.
Yeah.
She could have wrapped that stuff up in a ponytail like most
Use
white
some
girls
rollers, some hot rollers. Figure it out.
I mean, it's that having power that corrupts and having
Right.
absolute power that corrupts absolutely.
Right.
You know, it's interesting because as I tell you, when I talk to these people who are looking to run for either the Senate or for the House, I always say, how does it feel knowing that you're going to be a public servant? Because they don't see themselves as public servants.
Yeah.
They see themselves as leaders. And I'm like, no, actually, you're a public servant. And the whole mindset has to be that you have a constituent that elected you and you serve them. They don't serve you, but it's all been switched around here. It has been.
Yeah, no, you're right.
You know? So
I'm sorry, we got all off the rails. Darren had a nice topic laid out.
Well, you know what? The topic
El
was going
Presidente.
Yeah, I know.
The Holy Ghost don't have a program.
There you go. Exactly. Let the Holy Ghost lead.
I'm church everywhere. It doesn't matter.
I'm
Friday.
Every
praise
day.
dancing for y'all
Every day.
listening.
But what we were going to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, was comparing Donald Trump to Obama and to Joe Biden when it comes to Black Americans. And, you know, I think what is constantly reverbed in the hearts and minds of Blacks is not the accomplishments. It is the racial so-called division, Blacks of the inequality era, Blacks not getting their fair shake, you know, disparities here and there, whether it has to do with economics or it has to do with COVID-19. It's a continual barrage of he's not doing enough in the avenue of racial relations. Listen, the thing is, the most important thing for a president to do is, one, to protect the country from foreign invaders, and two, get the hell out of the way of capitalism and let it and allow it to rule. President Trump has done that outstandingly. As we mentioned, what Pastor Darrow said, you know, the unemployment rates have gone down for Blacks. Black businesses have been shooting up. Now, this is before COVID. Yeah, this is before COVID. Opportunity zones are there. You know, Black income has gone up. The gap between Black and whites have gotten smaller. A lot of wonderful things have happened. And all the liberals talk about is Trump's not denouncing, you know, white supremacist or he's not, you know, doing enough for racial relations. That's not his responsibility.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
So, you know.
And this is a good time for me to correct the record because I was when we talked about the Proud Boys.
Oh.
Yeah, what do you got to say about the Proud Boys?
The transcript that I had, the only transcript that was online at the time, completely left out that Chris Wallace said stand down and completely left off that Joe Biden said the Proud Boys.
Yeah.
Basically, what AJ is saying is Autry was right as per usual.
I thought it was me.
That was
I said
No,
I was the one who
well,
said,
you were. Yeah,
Every
you were.
once
Right,
in a
yeah.
blue
Well,
moon, they're
yeah,
right,
you're
and
right,
this was
you're
an
right.
opportunity
well, let's just
where
say
they're right. and
Autry
let
was
them
right
bask
as
in it.
usual. And then, you know, I don't want anybody writing me, but we can just say the men were right. I just want to point that out.
You guys were right. Enjoy your moment. Feel it. Have it.
But the point, that's, you can't even trust.
Although he should have
Sources.
he allowed that to happen. I still believe he allowed that to happen
No,
by saying,
we don't disagree
what do you
with
want
that.
me to say?
We don't disagree
But,
with that.
yeah.
I think it was just an error. I look at it as like Trump. If I had to channel it, I thought of it as Trump was saying, okay, what is it you want me to say? I mean, obviously I'm not a racist. I've denounced it before. Chris Wallace had asked him the question 2 years prior.
Right.
You know, that's what ticked me off about John Roberts, the Fox News journalist, when he was in the press briefing with Kayleigh
McEnany.
whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So this is what
And to me, it's like, I don't get why no one is pointing out Joe Biden's history with this. I mean, he's on the floor talking about how we shouldn't care about kids' past and who cares what they went through. We need to lock them up.
I don't know why the Trump campaign isn't doing
Why
it.
is this was the perfect time to bring that up?
Because liberals will circle the wagon behind their candidate
But they could run the commercials.
90% of the news outlets are liberal, and so they're never going to bring up Joe Biden's. But Joe,
But we can bring it up. Why don't I don't see that? I
don't see the other PACs doing it, but and I don't see. I mean, we've done it. We only can do so much.
When I found out Joe Biden was the nominee, I was so happy. Because everything that you hit Trump on, you can hit Biden on 100%. Women, racism.
That's what's crazy. We are all like, please make Joe Biden the nominee because we can go at him.
But they're not. They're missing an opportunity. This was a historically weak candidate in Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, he is.
Hillary Clinton was a stronger candidate than Joe Biden.
She had more
She was stronger than Joe Biden. She just made a personal critical mistake.
Right.
Her past was much stronger than Joe's.
Right.
In terms of liberals. And she made a critical, because Hillary could have ran on healthcare. She made a critical mistake, and that's not settling this emails, because they weren't going to arrest her. So she came out and said, hey, you know what, this email thing, this thing got out of control.
Right.
We were trying to put it back in the bag. We erred. That's our fault. We take responsibility. It won't happen again. Mistakes do happen. And that's one of the reasons why I will be a great leader, because I can see, acknowledge, correct, and never let it happen again.
Yeah.
She could have said that and moved on. But she kept it going herself.
She's like, what do you want me to wipe
the
server with a cloth? It's like, girlfriend,
she
made that. People can blame that on Republicans all you want. She could have handled it.
She did it.
And she didn't.
And
that's what we talk about all the time. The way a politician handles an issue can either shut it down or let it continue. And I believe that Trump, when he answered that way, he allowed the issue to continue.
Yeah, I
agree with that. He should have just said, I've addressed this a number of times, and I'm not addressing it anymore.
He should have said, I've addressed it a number of times. I denounced white supremacy. And by the way, you should ask the only racist on this stage.
Right.
Because Joe Biden for 47 years has talked about black folks or has used code language to lock them up.
Why haven't you brought that up, Chris? Why haven't you brought that up?
That should have been his attack line.
It should have. Yeah, it should have. And then mention corn pop. I thought corn pop was going to be.
Or the black girls that used to love rubbing the legs.
In the pool.
In the pool, right? Remember, Joe Biden actually said it. I used to love, these black girls used to love me and come and rub my blonde legs up and down the pool. What? Take your pedophile up. Anyway.
El Presidente and all he's done for black people, also on that. I just want to mention that I think the way that we think of the presidency today, we kind of see the president as a hero who swoops in and saves the day and solves all the problems across all the country. And I was like, let's go back to the Constitution. Because he is not supposed to do all that. His framework for how we judge a presidency should be, military, ambassadors, should be have to do with appointments, and it should not have to do with all the little minutia that Congress is supposed to take care of. He convenes Congress when they need to get their act together. But we put so much on the president to solve every problem and be the change we believe in.
Is it we put it on the president or we put it on government? Because this is the thing I keep on saying, that when you remove God, out of a society, someone has to play God, which is government. And so, of course, God answers all your needs and desires, whatever the case may be, whether it's a yay or a nay. But the point is, when you remove him out, then someone's got to play God, and government ends up playing God. So when government screws something up, you holler the government to fix it. And so we're at this point now where you're absolutely right, AJ. We look at a president. People look at a president as someone who's going to solve. I mean, if there's a cat stuck in, what did the lady say when Obama won? And the lady said, "I don't have to worry anymore because my car payment is going to be paid and my mortgage is going to." And they went back to the lady like 3 or 4 years later and said, "How's that going?" She was like, "Well, I was stupid to say that." But the point is, that's what people think.
Right.
That's what people think, that the government solves everybody's problems.
We need to vote for the person who will be the least involved in our lives. The least invasive, who understands that we need to pull back, not push forward.
The brass tacks is simple. Your governor and your legislature and your mayor should be the most important person politically in your life.
Right.
That's the way you should have it.
Right.
Whether you're Republican or Democrat, your governor, mayor, and local state representatives should be the most important people in your life.
Right.
And let's be frank, if you take a look at the issues plaguing right now, let's forget about healthcare because we've made that a national issue.
Right.
Right. But let's take a look at, with the exception of healthcare, if you take every other single issue, if you take school choice or schooling, if you take police brutality or the way police interact with people, no matter what the issue is, if you take care of housing and property taxes, in zoning, you can't put your church where you want your church. All that stuff is done at the local level. The president has nothing to do with that. And by the way, this is a great circle back all the way to the courts, because what's happened is the left has used the courts to try to dictate not only national policy, but more important, local policy.
Yep.
Right.
So when they're upset with something that happens locally that you voters decided would happen, they go to the courts to get to the change.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of allowing California's vote multiple times, surprisingly, against gay marriage, they went to the court.
They went to the courts.
How many times do people have to vote and tell you what they want?
Yeah, right? And then they got rid of that Mozilla CEO.
Right,
remember?
because he had
supported what was passed and what Obama's position was.
Right.
For decades.
Right. It basically has become liberals who will say, oh, we're for the people, Republicans are for the rich. Every chance they get, they're using their power to overturn what people say they want.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, what's happening, Darren?
Well, hey, we have burned an hour that quickly.
That was
Right.
quickly. I know
That was
I got
amazing.
some meetings.
That was really amazing. So, listen, we're going to be back tomorrow. We're going to have a great time. And we're going to talk about some more stuff. Probably not what we're going to write up, but it's going to be some fun stuff. So thank you. The Arab Reconstruction will convene in another 23 hours. Thank you very much.
Unca Ruckus again. No relation. This podcast is paid for by the New Journey PAC and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.